How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I am flying solo today, but there's still a lot to talk about because the Mavs, they suffered their second loss of this young season on Wednesday night against the Toronto Raptors at American Airlines Center. The Raptors, coming into that game, had one of the best defenses in the league. They also had one of the worst offenses, the sixth worst offense heading into that game. The Mavs, on the other hand, they have had one of the best offenses in the league. And the defense wasn't great, but it wasn't bad either. It was about middle of the pack. But the Raptors came in and they won 127-116. Luka Doncic had 31 points and 7 rebounds, 8 assists, 4 steals, 1 block. But he only shot 11 of 26 from the field. So this continues to be a tough matchup for Luka. Every time he plays against the Raptors, doesn't matter if he has Kyrie Irving or not, it's just tough for him. The elite length, those rangy defenders, big defenders, it's just hard for Luka having several of those guys thrown at him. And it's not like you can just get a screen and switch off on somebody that can't guard him, unless Dennis Schroeder. That's probably the only example. But other than him, I mean, if you switch, it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna get a screen here on OG Anunoby. Oh, great! Now I have Pascal Siakam covering me, or Chris Boucher, or Otto Porter Jr. They've just got so many guys with great defensive potential. Scotty Barnes, didn't even mention him, and he's arguably their best player, but or he had been coming into last night, but Pascal Siakam stole the show. He had a breakout game. He had been averaging just 15 points a game this season with, his shooting percentages being down, and he had a season-high 31 points to go with 12 rebounds, 5 assists on 15-25 shooting last night against the Mavs. So, it wasn't great, but, it's only the second loss of the season. Obviously, the biggest thing is Dereck Lively was out, the rookie starting center for the Mavs. He had a non-COVID illness and missed that game. First game he's missed all season. And, man, did the Mavs show that they really need their 19-year-old center to be their defensive anchor, because they got walloped on the boards, 50-38. It was even worse in the paint point department. 72 paint points they gave up to Toronto, and then they only scored 40 of their own. So just awful. Jason Kidd mentioned it after the game, how important Lively is to the Mavs, and he kind of called out the other bigs on the Mavs roster, saying that that there was nobody in the paint for them. And I mean, that might be harsh, but it was true. That is a true statement from Jason Kidd talking about the Mavs big man situation. It was awful. Aside, I mean, look, that's the two obvious things. There is Dereck Lively being out, and then that resulting in the Mavs losing the rebounding and paint battle as badly as they did. That's the obvious thing if you knew that Lively was out. Now, I've got 3 big takeaways from this Mavs-Raptors game. And again, it's some of it's harsh, some of it's just typical observations. But the first thing is Josh Green let the Mavs down. I mean, that's just plain and simple. He let them down. I mean, he's got to be better for the Mavs this season. I mean, they're not expecting him to be a star player. I've mentioned this a few times now, but, you can't have a guy that you just gave a 3-year, $41 million contract extension. You can't have a guy like that in 18 minutes off the bench just scoring 3 points, shooting 1 of 3, and then in those 18 minutes, you're a team high -21. And look, I know box score plus minus isn't the end all be all, but it matched the eye test last night. Josh Green was not good. And if y'all have been listening to this podcast for, the last year or so, or even going back to his rookie season, you guys know I'm a big Josh Green supporter. I am very pro Josh Green. But that was not a good game from him last night. And there's been too many times this season where he's just looked like a deer in the headlights. And for a fourth-year player, you can't be doing that. Like, he should be further along than what he has shown so far. Just indecisive. Sometimes he'll just make a beeline to the basket without having a plan, and he'll jump in the air and throw a ball. I mean, there's just no. That's the best way to describe it. Josh Green, more times than not, doesn't have a plan. He is just chaos. He is the Tasmanian devil on a basketball court. And he's got to reel that in a little bit and find a way to become more effective, because, like I said, 3 points, negative 21 in just 18 minutes is not going to cut it. It's just not. He's got to be better for the Mavs going forward if the Mavs are going to reach their full potential. And if he's not better, then, maybe at some point you consider using Green in a trade, because, I mean, like I said, it's year 4. You gotta show a little bit more growth. Now, to be fair to Green, it was only game 8 of the season. So, I mean, obviously still a ton of basketball left. There's 82 games. So, we got 70 more of these bad boys to go, at least in the regular season. So, I mean, there's still time for him to turn. And I'm confident that he will. I mean, he's still shooting, a good percentages across the board. He just has to be smarter with the ball. And, even he had it only shows 1 turnover for Josh Green in the box score, but there were a couple times where he gave his teammates like a ticking time bomb, and then it ended up turning into a turnover. So that's kind of misleading if you just see 1 turnover for Green in the box score. He caused a lot more damage than what that shows on there. So that's the first big takeaway. Again, aside from the obvious that they missed Dereck Lively. Now, the second one I have goes back to Luka and how the Raptors' elite defensive length gives him problems. As good as Luka is, unless guys are firing on all cylinders around him, he's not going to be efficient against a team like Toronto, because he gets the feeling. There was a certain point in that game where Luka just felt like, well, if I don't do it, nobody will. And then, Kyrie Irving gave him a good boost at the beginning of that fourth quarter. And it is kind of weird. I don't know why the Mavs went away from that, because Kyrie was cooking at the first part of the first quarter. But the Mavs couldn't get any stops. Kyrie would come down, hit a basket, and then they'd immediately give up a basket to Toronto. So they couldn't get a stop during that hot streak for Kyrie. I do think they should have tried to ride that momentum a little bit more than what they did. But regardless, Luka, he got the mindset that if he didn't do it, nobody else would, because they ended up missing a ton of free throws. That was another negative in this game against the Raptors. They lost by 11 points, and guess how many free throws the Mavs missed? You guessed it, 12. How many times did that happen last season, where the Mavs ended up losing by a specific margin, and then you go and look at the free throw numbers, and they missed, 1 more free throw that would have put them over the top if they had hit all of them. So that's what happened on Wednesday night. Mavs lose by 11. They also missed 12 free throws. So that's a stinger. But yeah, Luka, I mean, he's great. When that 3-point shot is falling, he's arguably the best player in the league. But when he's going 2 of 10 from 3, and 11 of 26 overall with, 4 turnovers, he was a -7 on the night. That 31 points just doesn't really look as good. And a lot of those, about 6 or 8 of those points kind of came when you were getting the feeling that the game was already over anyway. So shout out to Toronto. They always have a good defensive game plan when they play against Luka. And like I said, that defense is legit. They are good. I mean, the Mavs should be trying anything possible to get either Pascal Siakam or OG Anunoby on this team. Both are potentially going to go into free agency this upcoming summer. Pascal Siakam he's an expiring contract, so he is definitely going to go into free agency. OG Anunoby has a player option, but given how good he is and the amount he's making I think it's around like 17 million. I may be a little off there, but he's due for a pay upgrade. So I expect both of those guys to go into unrestricted free agency. And look, if the Raptors can't work out a contract extension with either one of them, you got to consider trading them before the February deadline. And I don't know if the Mavs have enough in the asset cupboard to get either one of those, but I wrote a piece on how they could potentially get Pascal Siakam here in the last few days. So go to DallasBasketball.com and check that out. But I mean, any of those guys on that Toronto team would be just, a godsend as far as like the Mavs wing depth and having more perimeter defense and putting some more size next to Luka and Kyrie. The third big takeaway I had from this game, and it's kind of a sad one to me, but the Mavs need to accept that Maxi Kleber isn't the player he used to be. And again, I mean, that, it sucks to admit that, but it's the truth. It's like everybody loved Reggie Bullock. Everybody loved how gritty he was defensively and how even though he didn't shoot the ball earlier in the season, he'd always come around December on and just turn it on, shooting the lights out. And then they made Mavs made the Western Conference Finals run where him and Dorian were spearheading the defense. And, there was a lot of love for Reggie, and it was warranted. But then there came a point last season where we just all collectively knew, everybody watching the games, that this guy just doesn't have it anymore. And the Mavs saw that. They ended up trading him, to in a three-way trade, getting Grant Williams, and then Bullock went to the Spurs. The Spurs released him, and then he signed with the Houston Rockets, and he's averaging less than a point a game so far this season. So, I mean, some things are just really obvious. And for me, Maxi Kleber not having it anymore is one of those things for me. I mean, he just doesn't have it. I hate it because he is a Mavs homegrown talent. He was an undrafted free agent signing. He's from Dirk's hometown, Wurzburg, Germany. And he's been a key piece for this Mavs for the last several years. He's been a great defender. I'd argue, even though he wasn't suited to be the Mavs' true defensive anchor, he was a defensive anchor for so many years when the Mavs didn't have anything else resembling that. He's been a pretty good 3-point shooter up until his latest string of injuries. And, the last one, it's just really hard to come back from a hamstring tear when you're in your 30s, especially when you rely on your athleticism, the way Maxi did, his verticality, being a rim protector, getting enough legs into your jump shot, to be confident there. I mean, it's just not there for Maxi, and I hate it. I don't think it's anything on him, not having the right mindset or anything, but I think it's just his body has failed him. And I feel like he's let that affect his confidence too. So I hate it for him. Again, I hope it's early in the season. I don't want to just say like it's just completely over for him, but judging by how he played last year, coming back from that hamstring tear and how he started off this season, I don't know. It doesn't look good, but maybe he will surprise all of us and, come back and be at least a positive off the bench. I mean, he doesn't have to be great, but if he could give at least 10 to 12 good minutes off the bench with Lively starting, I mean, that would help a lot. So, so now the Mavs move on to Friday, which will be their second in-season tournament game. They take on the Los Angeles Clippers, who just traded for James Harden. And, they've lost both of their games so far since adding Harden. Their depth isn't really what it needs to be. And they haven't won a game on the road. So the Mavs coming off a loss. They're 3-1 at home now. They're playing a team that just acquired a new piece that hasn't really got their chemistry together, and they haven't won a road game for the entire season. There's a good chance for the Mavs to bounce back at American Airlines Center on Friday against the Clippers, and then they head off on a 4-game road trip that starts with 2 straight games in New Orleans. I'll be there for those personally. Now, because of that, this is probably going to be my last pod until I'm going to try to do one on on Monday, so the day following that first Pelicans game, but we'll see how it goes. At the very least, it'll be Wednesday, or at the latest it'll be Wednesday, but I'll try to be back on here Monday after that first Pelicans game. So, guys, I appreciate it. Before I take off here, I do want to tell you about the Sleeper app. So the Sleeper app, if you like daily fantasy sports, if you think you know basketball, you could up to 100 times your money with your picks on the Sleeper app if you use it. So if you're a daily fantasy sports person and you're looking at different games to bet on and all that kind of stuff, they've got all kinds of individual player stats that you can bet on. I know on tonight there's only 2 NBA games. So the Bucks play the Pacers and the Hawks play the Orlando Magic. So there's not as much as there usually is when there's a full slate of games, but there's still, between those 2 games, there's still a pretty good bit to choose from. So with Orlando and Atlanta, Trae Young's over-under for blocks is 0.5. I'm taking the under on that. I just, I don't see Trae Young playing much defense against this Orlando Magic team. DeJounte Murray, over-under on three-pointers made, 1.5. I'm taking the over there. And then Paolo Banchero, over-under 21.5 points. Take the over there. I think Banchero will be able to kind of overpower the Hawks to a certain degree, and I expect him to have a big night against Atlanta. And then one more for good measure, Clint Capella, a guy who has been linked to the Mavs in trades for a while now. His over-under for rebounds is 9.5, and I'm going to take the over there because the Magic are having some injury issues, and Clint Capella, he's a hard-nosed veteran, and I could see him grabbing at least 10 rebounds against this Orlando team tonight. So we will see how all that goes. And look, if you want to get up to $100 off on your first deposit, I'm sorry, not $100 off. What am I saying? Don't listen to me. No, but if you want to get up to $100 matched on your first deposit, use our promo code STEPBACK. That's STEPBACK. Use promo code STEPBACK, and you could get up to $100 match on your first deposit. So, guys, be sure to go do that. If you're a daily fantasy sports person and you like, making bets on all these different things, go check it out. Get their app. It's really cool. There's so many other, like I mentioned those 4 prop bets that I'm taking tonight, but I'm looking on here. They got Jalen Suggs over under on assists. You got Franz Wagner over under 4.5 rebounds. That's probably a good one, to potentially take the over. Tyrese Halliburton, 11.5 assists. They got all kinds of stuff on here. So go check it out. See what you think. And yeah, we'll see you next time, guys. Appreciate it. Y'all like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. Hit that subscriber button on YouTube. We just passed the 12,000 subscriber mark on, after our most recent episode. So I really appreciate you guys doing that. And be sure to go give us a bunch of likes and comments. I mean, I love talking with you guys on there too. So we'll probably have to do some live stuff, plan some live stuff for later in the season, just so we can, interact live and not have to do it in the comments after the fact. So I'll definitely look into doing that. And then also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts for a chance to win future giveaways. We got a bunch of t-shirts that we give away. Every now and then we do ticket giveaways and stuff like that. So be sure to go and leave a review on Apple Podcasts and put your social media on there so we know how to contact you if you win. So anytime there's a giveaway, that's what I do. I go to our Apple Podcast reviews and I scroll through them and I pick a winner at random. So if you have left us a review on there, you automatically have your name thrown into the hat to potentially win a giveaway. So guys, appreciate it. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. I will probably not be on here Saturday to recap the Clippers game, but who knows? Depending on what happens, I might have to do it from my phone, like I did one of these last videos, and just put something up there real quick. We'll see. I've been saying like, oh, I'm gonna do 2 a week, and then I end up doing like 4 a week. So so we'll see how it goes. I appreciate y'all. I'll see you next time.